My mother was 71 years old when she died, and I thought I knew everything about her. That's the thing about losing a parent. You assume you've had enough time. Enough dinners, enough Sunday phone calls, enough years of ordinary life stacked on top of each other that by the end, there are no more surprises. You think you've seen the whole picture. I was wrong. It was a Tuesday in March when my brother-in-law called. He'd been helping me clear out my mother's house in Dayton, a two-story colonial she'd lived in for 34 years, and I was 3 hours away in Columbus, finishing up some work before driving down that weekend. He said he was pulling up the old carpet in the spare bedroom, the one my mother had used as a sewing room for as long as I could remember, and he'd found something. He didn't explain what. He just said, "You should come tonight, and come alone." I almost asked him why, but there was something in his voice that stopped me. He wasn't being dramatic. He sounded careful, the way someone sounds when they're choosing every word before they say it. I told my wife I had to go. She asked if everything was okay. I said I didn't know yet. My mother's name was Iris. She was a retired school librarian, the kind of woman who still handwrote thank you notes and kept paper grocery lists tucked in her purse. She made her bed every morning before 7. She called every Sunday at 4 without fail, and if I didn't pick up, she'd leave a voicemail that always started the same way. "Hi, honey, it's me." As if I might have forgotten what her voice sounded like. She was not a mysterious person, or at least, I never thought she was. My father passed when I was 19, a heart attack, sudden, no warning. My mother raised me and my sister the rest of the way herself. She worked full-time at the school district and came home every evening and made dinner and helped with homework and did everything that needed doing without ever making us feel like it was hard. I don't know how she did that. I've thought about it a lot since she died, and I still don't know. She never remarried. She dated a little in her late 50s. Nothing serious. She had friends from church, from the library, from the neighborhood. She was, as far as I could see, a woman who had built a quiet and steady life and was at peace with it. That's what I believed, right up until my brother-in-law called me from her sewing room floor. I got to Dayton a little after 10. The house was dark except for the light in the upstairs window. He met me at the door before I even knocked. He's been married to my sister for 12 years. He's a contractor by trade, which is why we'd asked him to help assess what needed to be done before we listed the house. He's the kind of guy who doesn't get rattled easily. He's seen plenty of old houses, old problems, old surprises behind walls and under floors. But when he opened the door that night, he looked like he'd been sitting with something heavy for a few hours and didn't quite know how to set it down. He led me upstairs without saying much. The sewing room smelled like my mother, fabric softener, and something faintly floral, the same scent the whole house carried. He'd rolled back the carpet from the corner near the closet. Underneath, the subflooring had been cut and reset at some point. You could see it if you knew what to look for. A square about 18 inches across, where the boards didn't quite match the grain of the rest. He'd pried it up. Inside the cavity, sitting between the joists in the dark, was a metal box. It was the kind they sell at office supply stores. Gray, with a small lock on the front, a little bigger than a hardcover book. The kind people use for keeping documents or cash. There was no dust on it, not a lot anyway. Whatever dust was there looked like it had settled recently, not like something that had been sitting for 30 years. I remember staring at it for a long time before I touched it. "I didn't open it," he said. I figured it should be you." I picked it up. It was heavier than I expected. Something shifted inside when I tilted it. Paper maybe, or something thicker. The lock was a 3-digit combination. Nothing fancy. The kind you could probably figure out if you knew the right number. I didn't know the right number. I tried her birthday. 4 to 9. Nothing. I tried mine. Nothing. I tried my sister's. Nothing. I tried the year my father died. Nothing. My brother-in-law sat on the edge of the bed and watched me go through number after number. He didn't say anything. The house was very quiet. I could hear the furnace running somewhere below us and the occasional tick of the old radiator in the hallway. I tried the year my parents got married, 1978. The lock opened. I sat on the floor of my mother's sewing room for a long time before I looked inside. I don't know exactly what I was afraid of. I think I was afraid of the particular kind of knowing that you can't undo. You go your whole life with a version of someone in your head, and that version is built out of everything you've seen and heard and been told. And most of the time it's close enough to the truth that it doesn't matter if it's not completely accurate. And then sometimes you find something that shows you the gap between who you thought someone was and who they actually were, and that gap is bigger than you expected. I was 43 years old, sitting on the floor of my mother's house, and I was scared to open a box. I opened it. The first thing I saw was a manila envelope, the kind with the metal clasp on the back. It had my mother's handwriting on the front, not a name. Just 3 words, "For when it's time." Underneath the envelope was a smaller one, letter-sized, sealed. And underneath the envelope was a smaller one, letter-sized, sealed. And underneath that was a photograph. I picked up the photograph first. It was old, black and white or close to it. The color had faded so much, it was almost monochrome. 2 people standing in front of a car I didn't recognize, somewhere flat and open, a field maybe, or a parking lot on the edge of somewhere empty, a man and a woman. The man I didn't recognize at all. The woman was my mother. She looked young, late 20s, maybe early 30s. She was laughing at something off camera, her head turned slightly to the side, and I remember thinking I had never seen her look quite like that. Not happy exactly. She was plenty happy. I have a whole childhood of proof of that, but something more than happy. Lighter, somehow. Like a version of her I'd never actually met. The man next to her was tall, dark-haired, with his arm around her shoulder. He wasn't looking at the camera either. He was looking at her. I turned the photo over. On the back, in my mother's handwriting, August 1976. Before I knew what I was going to do. My parents got married in 1978. I was born in 1981. I set the photo down carefully on the carpet. I picked up the large manila envelope and undid the clasp. Inside were documents, official-looking. Some of them were old enough that the paper had gone soft at the edges. There were court papers, I could see the county seal, and a certificate of some kind, and a letter on what looked like a social services letterhead, dated 1977. I read slowly, then I read again. My mother had a baby in 1977, a girl. She was 26. She wasn't married. The father and I looked at the photograph again, and I knew without needing anyone to tell me. Wasn't in the picture by then. Not really. The baby was placed for adoption through a private agency out of Cincinnati. The paperwork was all there, the consent form signed in my mother's handwriting, the name of the agency, which didn't exist anymore, a case number, and in the smaller sealed envelope, which I opened last, was a letter, my mother's handwriting but recent. The paper was white and unaged, and she'd written with the blue rollerball pen she kept on her desk downstairs, the one I'd seen her use 1,000 times. If you're reading this, then I'm gone and someone found what I kept here. I want you to understand that I thought about telling you for a long time. The right time never came, or I told myself it didn't. That was my fault, not yours. You deserved to know you had a sister. I had to stop reading. I set the letter down on my knee and I looked around the room, at the sewing machine she'd had since the 90s, at the plastic bins of fabric stacked against the wall, at the little ceramic dish on the windowsill where she kept her thimbles. I looked at all of it like I was seeing it for the first time. My brother-in-law had gone downstairs at some point quietly, without me noticing. I was alone in the room. Her name, the name I was told, was Cecilia. She would be 47 now. I don't know if she ever looked for me. I was afraid to find out. I was a coward in that particular way for a very long time, and I am sorry for it. There is a contact in the envelope with this letter. It's the name of a woman who worked at the agency in its last years before it closed. She helped other people find each other. I don't know if she's still working. I wrote her name down in case you wanted to try. I should have done this myself. I know that. I hope you can forgive me for not being brave enough. I love you. I always will. Take care of your sister, the one you know about, and the one you might find. I don't know how long I sat up there. Long enough that my brother-in-law came back upstairs to check on me, and when he saw my face, he sat down on the floor next to me without a word and stayed there. I told him what the letter said, what the document said. He listened. He didn't try to fill the silence with anything useful. After a while, he said, "Are you going to tell your sister?" "I don't know," I said. That was the honest answer. I didn't know anything that night. I didn't know what I was supposed to do with paperwork from an adoption that happened a year before my parents met. I didn't know what my mother had carried around for 47 years alone, while she made our dinners and attended our school events and called every Sunday at 4. I didn't know if the woman named Cecilia, born in Cincinnati in 1977, had ever wondered about the mother who gave her up. I didn't know if she'd looked for her and found nothing. I didn't know if she was even still alive. I just knew that my mother had kept this in the floor of her sewing room, in a box she could have thrown away at any point, for reasons she'd never explained to anyone. And she'd locked it with the year she got married. That detail bothers me still. I've turned it over 100 times, and I can't decide what it means. Was it the easiest number to remember? Was it the moment she'd chosen my father, and her life with him, and us, and decided the past was the past? Was she trying to say something with a combination that she couldn't bring herself to say out loud? I don't know. I'll probably never know. I told my sister 2 days later. We sat at the kitchen table in the house we'd grown up in, and I walked her through the documents one by one. She went very still when I got to the letter. She read it herself. She read it twice. She never said a word, my sister said. Not as an accusation. Just as a fact she was trying to fit somewhere. No. 47 years. Yeah. We sat there for a while. Outside, the neighbor's dog was barking at something. The refrigerator hummed. The house made all the sounds it always made. "Do you want to find her?" my sister asked. I had been thinking about that since the night in the sewing room. I'd been thinking about the contact my mother had left, the woman from the agency, and whether a name written on a piece of paper was enough to pull on. I'd been thinking about a 47-year-old woman somewhere in the country who may or may not know she was adopted, who may or may not have ever wondered where she came from. "I think I do," I said, "if she wants to be found." My sister nodded slowly. "Then we try." I contacted the woman my mother had named in the letter. It took me a few weeks to work up to it. She was retired, but she called me back the same day I left a voicemail, and she was kind and careful, and she said she'd heard stories like mine before, not exactly like mine, but close enough. And she gave me the name of a search registry, the kind where adoptees and birth families both have to opt in. And she told me not to expect anything quickly and not to expect anything at all, because sometimes people don't want to be found, and that was their right too. I understood that. Or I tried to. I submitted what information I had, the agency name, the case number, the year, the county. I attached a letter explaining who I was and what I'd found and what I was hoping for. I left out the part about how I'd learned all of this from a metal box in the floor of a dead woman's sewing room, because I didn't know how to put that in writing in a way that didn't sound like something out of a movie. Then I waited. I'm still waiting, to be honest. It's been 8 months since my brother-in-law called me on that Tuesday and asked me to come alone. The house in Dayton has been sold to a young couple with a baby. My sister and I split what was left after the estate was settled. My mother's sewing machine is in my garage because I couldn't bring myself to get rid of it, and neither could my sister. The metal box is on the shelf in my home office. I haven't put anything else in it. I'm not sure why I kept it. It's not a pretty object, but I find myself looking at it sometimes, just for a second, When I'm on the phone or trying to remember where I put something, I look at it and I think about my mother at 26, standing in a field somewhere with a man I never met, laughing at something off camera. I think about the year she spent carrying a secret that she never put down. I think about what it costs a person to keep something like that, quietly, for a lifetime. Through a marriage and 2 kids and 30-some years of Sunday phone calls and handwritten thank you notes, I don't know if I'm angry. I've asked myself that question a lot. Some days it's close. Other days it just feels like grief in a different shape. Not grief for what she did, but grief for the conversation we never got to have. The one where she might have told me herself if she'd found the courage, and I might have told her it was okay. That I understood. That whatever she'd needed to do at 26, she'd still been a good mother. She'd been a great one. I would have told her that. I hope she knew it anyway. The photograph is in my desk drawer. I look at it sometimes too. My mother laughing, her head turned, young in a way I never got to see. Whoever she was before she was my mother. If Cecilia is out there somewhere, and if she ever reads this, I want her to know that the woman who made that decision in 1977 spent the rest of her life being exactly the kind of person you would have wanted to know. She was steady. She was kind. She never raised her voice. She kept her promises, almost all of them, and when she couldn't keep one, she at least left a note. The floor of the sewing room is still there, under new carpet now, in someone else's house. The square cut in the boards is still there too, though probably no one will ever look. Some things stay hidden even after they've been found.